there's people who don't have experience doing critique, so they do fall back onto opinion and what they like.
Yes.
And it's our job to actually start asking the right questions at that point, right? Okay, so you can just listen and you can say, okay, just listening and acknowledging.
Right.
But then because you don't have to do anything with what anybody says, right? And that's really the power of the designer and being the expert. But you also then get to ask your own questions, like can you elaborate on that? Why do you think that? Because really your goal is to get to the bottom of how can this make the design better or change it? Not your job isn't just to be the people pleaser yes man for every single person in the room.
Exactly. That's the big key is, the point and purpose behind a critique is to make the architecture better. Welcome to the Archispeak podcast, the podcast for architects by architects, where we discuss all things about architecture. I'm Neil Pan. Each episode, Evan Troxel, Cormac Phelan, and me invite you in on the conversation as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the block more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we gather around the water cooler and talk about this profession we call architecture. It's time for some Archispeak.
I died in South Africa, only outlined my body in Tiffany blue. When I died, I drove riding and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank. And you.
Welcome to episode 45 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And this week we have some friends of the show to announce. Evan, who's our friend of the show this week?
We had a couple of donations this week, and I can tell you about one of them, and that is John Brown from Weymouth, Dorset, which is in the southern United Kingdom. And he teaches architectural surveying, civil engineering course, and is also the program leader for a foundation degree, listen to this, in applied architectural stonework and conservation.
Awesome.
Very cool. So
that's actually very awesome.
Yeah, so John donated $25. We really appreciate it, John, and we can't wait to come visit you.
Is that 25 pounds or dollars?
Dollars.
Oh, damn. Pounds is worth more. No, thank you, John.
Nice.
We do appreciate it.
So thanks, John, for becoming a friend of the show. And if you would like to become a friend of the show and help support the podcast and have your name either read or not, it's up to you. Let us know on archispeakpodcast.com/donate, and we would appreciate it. It really helps with the podcast. Thanks, John.
And then the other thing, just a kind of a program note, we're recording this prior to the Equity by Design symposium that's taking place on Saturday, October 18th. But this episode will actually air on Sunday, the 19th. But just want to remind everybody that we will be doing a special episode about the symposium with some guest speakers on the show and some interviews from the actual Equity by Design, which I'll be attending or have attended on Saturday. So look forward to that in an upcoming episode. And, if you're going or if you've already been, if you've got some feedback that you would like to send us on that, either wait for that episode or let us know, and we'll include those comments in the show.
Hey, did you guys see that we were listed as one of the 8 best podcasts for architects?
What?
By NCARB.
NCARB?
How cool is that?
The
Yes.
NCARB?
The National Carb. That's right.
Awesome.
And but the reason I bring it up is because the other podcasts out there on architecture are all worth checking out, and we would be remiss if we didn't say that a lot of our friends who podcast are listed on there, and some of them who podcast are not listed on there, but we think they should be. So I definitely think that Enoch Sears's podcast should be added to the list.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you actually see that NCARB today on Twitter did post that they were amending their list and adding Enoch to it?
Nice.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
So there's other podcasts on there, and I think we'll just include that link in the show notes so that everybody can check out all those other very, very good architectural podcasts.
Yes.
So we'll throw that in the show notes. Cool. So let's do a little bit of follow-up with some voicemails and comments. Cormac?
Well, from last show, when we were talking about the North Carolina house, we got a voicemail and an email from George Smart, who is the executive director of North Carolina Modern Houses. And we haven't been able to, and when we say me, haven't been able to follow up with him, only because Evan and Neil have been relying on my memory to actually make the phone call to him, and that's a bad idea.
You're busy.
But George, I will be contacting you, and we will be sitting down and having a little chat about the house, and the Lewis Cherry house is what we were talking about, and trying to get some good inside information on what's going on with that.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for reaching out to us, George, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes. So from episode 38 on interviewing, Larry Paschal from HPD Architecture, and also does the Architecture Happy Hour podcast. Yeah, one of our architecture podcast fellow podcasters. And if you haven't checked their podcast out, you should. It's good stuff too. Anyway, he talked about a couple of items that he wanted to add to the to a few things that we missed, and one of them, which I'm kind of glad that he did, was the cover letter. One of his comments is that we totally missed the cover letter, and he said some people do include them when they're sending off their resume, and some people don't. And I'm kind of glad that he pointed this out, because it's kind of interesting now that we're in the this wonderful digital age world where we're sending everything through email. Most people think that an email is the substitute for a cover letter, and I'm not quite sure I agree with that. And because the cover letter is your introductory, it's your introduction of who you are, what your aspirations are. It's
first impression, right?
Yeah, to me, you should never actually, and this is just me, you should never have the objective. The objective should be something that should completely go away from your resume.
I think we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have that in there, get rid of it, because your cover letter is your objective. In a sense, we already know what your objective is. We're all in architecture. We're wanting a job in architecture. We want to pursue and enrich our career in architecture. However it is, it's the cover letter that's going to, be the introduction of who you are, what you can do, and what you want to do. And one of the great things about Larry's comments is that, and again, let's go back to the ease of the digital age. It is really easy to do research on an architecture firm. If they have a website, you're going to gain some insight on what they do. But go one step further. Larry was talking about how he got it. He had a few resumes come in, and clearly the person that he was reading didn't do any research on their firm, and was kind of blowing a little bit of smoke up them, and completely just kind of blew it. It's really easy to do a bit of research, and if you're in the area of where you want to work, it's also a good idea, and this is just me throwing out my little 2 cents, to do a bit of, just do a drive-by on some of their work and, see what they do and,
experience it, yeah.
Experience it a little bit. But, he was just talking about, to me, the one thing that you shouldn't be ashamed of doing, and in fact, I encourage you guys to do it, is go to their website, get their contact information, call the firm up, Find out who you're supposed to send the resume to. You know, the day and age of the to whom it may concern, just stop.
Well, find out who's going to be interviewing you.
Find out who the may concern actually is, and do a personal letter to them. It'll help you stand out to the next guy who does do to whom it may concern.
Yeah. One thing that Larry put in his comment was that one guy he spoke to was given a list by the College of Architecture firms in Dallas with no other pertinent info other than names, and said good luck, and that was it.
And that's actually the point that he was bringing up there is how the schools teach you how to put together a portfolio. They probably teach you how to put together a resume. Maybe not on how to do a cover letter. Hopefully the cover letter class and the resume class are one and the same. But if they don't, do some research on how to do a cover letter.
It's but one thing called the internet.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing that almost nobody, and I know that I didn't do it, and guys, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that your schools didn't do it, is how do you actually go and look for a job? I mean, do you do what Neil used to do and open up the yellow pages and, flip through each of the pages and say, here's a firm close by my house. I'll go ahead and do that. Or, now it's, you can do the web search on who you guys want to work for. You can do a little bit of research on what they do, but how do you go about actually deciding how to apply for a job? I mean, do you guys have any?
Well, just getting back to the good luck thing. To me, luck is an outcome of superior effort and focused execution. There is no such thing as an equal
Dude, did you have that written
field.
down?
I was
going
to say that was awesome.
Did you have that written? You just didn't pull that out of your head, did you?
This is how you are going to get a job. You are going to do the work that it takes to get the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you need to know what other people are making. You need to know what the positions are called. You need to know what the titles are. You need to know what the culture is at the firm that you're going to be interviewing at. You need to see if it is in alignment with how you think things should be. I mean, you need to be a good fit for the firm, and the firm needs to be a good fit for you if you're going to be working your butt off there, right? So you want to see if they have the same values, and the only way that that's going to happen is, you only need to give the time of day to the firms that fall within the same viewpoint that you have. If you're going to make a big career out of this, if you are just looking for a job, then just do a ton of interviews to get all the experience. But I'm try to be way more focused than that and get the exact job that you want.
Well, that actually goes back to last episode when we did a couple of follow-ups.
Yeah, to Dustin, right?
Yeah, where he was talking about
I was thinking the same thing.
The millennials, and he's just like, well, I did some things that I just, some types of work and stuff that I really didn't like to do. Well, in a way, that's kind of our fault, right? Because we pick the places we work. Understand that the job that you take is purely your choice. You can go to all of these different firms and you can get, you can apply for, as Evan said, firms that fit your wants, your needs, your desires, your lifestyle, your aspirations of what you want to do with your career. Go to all of those firms, interview with those firms, sell yourself, make them think that they have to hire you and nobody else, and then give yourself the opportunity to pick and choose. But ultimately, you're the one who's going to have to pick the course of your own course of practice.
Yeah. I was talking about Dustin's comment, which was on the Architects Websites episode, I believe.
Oh, yes.
And
okay. I was thinking the millennial one.
He designed his education. And I this translates, I think, to the workforce too. If you want to be intentional about the job you're going after,
Yes.
And if you see holes in your experience, you could be working somewhere now and you see holes in your experience. Maybe you need to complete IDP, and you're not getting the experience that you need. You are the one in charge of that, right? So you've got to go out and find it, or you've got to go find another place to work, and be clear about that when you're interviewing. And say, here's the experience I need. Can I get that here? Because if you can't, I'm sure they'd be happy to be honest with you about that. And say, you know what, we really don't do that kind of work, or, hopefully you already know that by doing your research ahead of time.
Well, Larry pointed out in his comments as well about, students who are coming out of school with no real experience, just being terrified about, putting together their resume. And it's just like, well, how do I get a job with no experience? Well, firms are looking for you. Firms want you. And they already know that you don't have the experience, or, they wouldn't have called you. And that's okay, because they are looking for the entry-level person. But what you should do during that interview is exactly what Evan said, is sit down and explain to them your map for what you want your career to do, and how both you see yourself fitting into that roadmap and how they fit into that roadmap.
Yeah, we're doing reviews right now at the firm I work with, and I was contributing to somebody's review, and we have a goals section, and we write down what our goals are for the next year. And so I had a chance to comment on this other person's goals, and it was laid out. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I need help accomplishing. And this is what I need to accomplish for IDP. These are my biggest tasks. And I thought, wow, very organized, really helpful. And I'm going to do everything I can to help make sure that happens. And if you do that going into a job also, and kind of setting an expectation that what you want to get out of it as well, I think that kind of clarity is very helpful. There are going to be some places where maybe they don't want to hear that, and maybe that's just not a place you want to work. But
exactly.
But at least up front.
Sort of reminds me of if you're a small firm architect and you have a business, what's your business plan, right? You got to write it out. I know Mark LePage of Entrepreneur Architect always talks about that, writing up your business plan. And I think that can go.
He calls it your vision plan too, right?
Yes,
He's talking about your kind of like, what do you want your life to look like? Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what you're talking about, Evan, is really no different from that. I mean, it's very similar, I should say. But I wanted to go back and make mention of how do you, and we may have covered it during the episode, but maybe not, but because of Larry's comment here. But I just want to throw in, if you're trying to do your research about the firm, use all the tools that are available to us today. Go on LinkedIn, find people that say maybe work for that firm. You may find, somebody you went to college with works there.
And take them out to coffee.
Take them out to coffee. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
What's it like? If you don't know anyone at that firm, then what you might want to do is, go to your local, if you have a local AIA office or, some other professional organization that they may be involved with. It could even be something like if they do nonprofit work, go talk to people that they have had as clients is another avenue. And you can go talk to them as, what's this firm like? What were they like to work with? Who did you work with? Start getting some names, then go look them up on LinkedIn. Who are they connected with? That you might know. And that could be, you're in to, oh, well, I know this person and they happen to be connected to this person at this firm. And, suddenly, boom, you never know.
I think that's a great point, yeah.
So there's lots of tools available. It's far easier than, as Cormac referenced, in my day when we had to use the yellow pages and the white pages.
Did the same thing.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot. Throwing me under the bus there.
Rotary telephone.
So
I didn't throw you under the bus. I threw you under the carriage.
Under the carriage. Oh, man. All right. Yeah. So anyway.
I would also mention, though, that I'm going to be giving a talk at the local architecture school here pretty soon about social media and stuff. And I also think that you really need to look at how you're presenting yourself, because just like you're going to be researching the firm, you can guarantee they're going to be researching you.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so what is your professional presence like, and what is your non-professional presence like online? Because some firms could definitely see that as a liability, or they could see it as a huge advantage to them, depending on what you've got out there. So I wanted to throw that out there.
I'm kind of glad you actually brought that up, because I remember probably about maybe almost 3 years ago, or however long I've been on Twitter. I mean, there was this one kid still in school, getting ready to come out of school, and he was just like, I'm having such a really hard time trying to find a job, and he just kept talking about all this stuff, and he kept complaining, and he was really bitching a lot online, and voicing some pretty negative opinions and things like that. And so I inboxed him, and I was like, look, one of the things that could be working completely against you is your attitude. Your attitude and your well, it's more like your presence online. You've got a public presence now with being on Twitter, and you're out there, basically bitching and moaning about the profession and this, that, and the other, this place that you're trying to break into. Yet, here you have such a really low opinion about people who aren't hiring you. Well, they're not going to hire you if that's the opinion that they're going to see that you have. And so you need to be very conscious about what you're putting on, putting out there for the world to see.
And your negative attitude's just going to come right back.
Absolutely.
If you put negativity out, you're going to get negativity back.
Exactly. Because
it's contagious.
because people are like, have their own personal opinions about, what they can and can't do on social media. But understand one thing: you're freely putting your own attitude out there, and it's creating a perception, or it's creating your public appearance. And so if you're using your social media as a tool to get a job, that, personal appearance that you're creating online can either work for you or against you. So it's your choice.
Rhett, I would add to that, using Twitter or other social media avenues is also a way to get to know that firm.
Absolutely.
Follow that firm on Twitter. If you, follow people that work for that firm, and you'll start to, over time, it may not take that long, but, you're looking for a job. If that's a firm you're trying to investigate, use those tools and find out.
Yeah, set up a separate Twitter list with those firms,
right
on there, and just skim it. Everyone, you'll get a real quick idea of what kinds of things they're interested, what they're putting out there, what their PR is, all that stuff.
So I think those are a number of good tips for people that are coming out of school to learn and do what needs to be done to kind of address the couple of things that Larry had brought up in his voice. Actually, that wasn't a voicemail. That was in communication directly with me. So we appreciate Larry reaching out and letting us know, and hopefully he finds enough time to keep listening. So we're all very busy.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
We do
Larry.
appreciate
that comment.
Yeah. And so actually, we did have an actual voicemail from Hunter Bradshaw, who's a student at Louisiana Tech.
Hey guys, my name is Hunter Bradshaw. I'm a student of architecture. I'm in my sophomore year at Louisiana Tech. And I had a question. So during critiques, especially small critiques, sometimes the teacher, whenever he's talking to anywhere from 5 to 7 students, they might ask other students to critique another student's work. Whenever I get called on, a lot of times I feel uncomfortable. So I was wondering if you guys could give some do's and don'ts to that kind of situation, things to say, things you shouldn't say, and how to approach saying them in order to sound professional, but at the same time get the message across. But, long-time listener. I love the show. thanks for putting in all the work. It's one of my favorites to listen to as soon as it comes out. Thanks. Bye.
He brought up a couple of things that were really interesting about how to critique another student's work. As a student, it's always kind of difficult when you might get called on to comment on your fellow classmates, work. And it's like, what are some do's and don'ts, some things you might want to say or shouldn't say, and maybe how you should try and sound professional, but at the same time kind of get the message across. So I think this was actually a topic that we had on our list for quite a while. So I really appreciate Hunter for calling in and bringing this up, because I think we've got a number of things to say about it. So.
And also, Hunter, one of the professors at La Tech is a guy that I graduated school with. So if you haven't already had Robert Brooks, he's cake, man. So don't worry about it. He's easy go.
Don't mention Cormac's name, Hunter. Word of warning.
Yeah, he was a real good friend of mine, and actually, if you do mention my name, mention it in some good light or something like that, or tell him that I have pictures from school, and we can either get an A or an F. So just forget it. Don't mention anything. But I loved, because it's something that we face it every day, or at least we're going to continue to face it throughout our entire career. And that's how to, critique someone.
And how to take it.
Exactly, and how to take it. And, it was kind of interesting because it's very timely. Friday, we had kind of our office happy hour. And we're sitting down and we were going through projects. And, it got to me where I brought up the Annapolis Elementary School project, telling them that, we just finished it up. And we started going through photographs that we at the office had taken. And then we just recently got a bunch of proofs from a professional photographer that the contractors hired. And I started talking to them about the quality of the photographs and how using the professional photographs, and we had talked about this in a past episode, but how the quality of the work of the it's not that our photographs were bad. Or in fact, our photographs were actually pretty good, but there was just something about the professionals, and again, professional in air quotes there. That's what they do.
They're experts, yeah.
And so, I started going, on a little tangent about, how we present our work. And the people in the office started getting they were getting a little testy and, almost very apprehensive about my critique on the quality of how we present our work. And I wasn't trying to bash the stuff that we were doing, although I have made absolutely no, I've made this perfectly clear to everybody that I've told. I truly believe in professional photography for our work. If we're out there marketing it, I would really love to see some good, high quality photographs. But that aside, I was telling them that it wasn't because I thought our work was bad. It was, I think that our work has got something. We just need to take it to the next level. If this is what we're going to use, this is what we can do to improve it. And, being a friend of the guy who actually took the photographs, we'd been talking about this for quite some time. And he absolutely took no offense to my critique, but other people in the office thought that I was being kind of hard on him. It's like, oh, don't take that from him. He's, he doesn't know what he's talking about. These are good pictures and stuff. And it's, yes, they are good pictures, but they're not great pictures. And I want you.
Yeah, can I read a quote real quick here? This is totally it's off topic, but it fits right in with what you're saying. And this is on Seth Godin's blog today. It's called "Put a Frame Around It." And I just thought of this because you were just the way you're presenting this is so appropriate here. So the title's "Put a Frame Around It." Wrap it in a bow, serve it on ice. What's worth more, the frame or the poster? It turns out that a well-framed bit of graphics is often transformed, at least in the eyes of the person engaging with it. It might be the very same beautiful object that was thumbtacked to the wall, but it sure feels different. And an unwrapped piece of jewelry is worth far less without the blue box, isn't it? The wrapper isn't everything. It might not even be the point, but it matters. How should I judge this is something we ask ourselves all the time. When you make the effort to give us a hint, we'll often take the hint. And so this is all about how proud of the work are you, right? Is it worth putting in the extra effort and taking it to that next level? So I just wanted to add that real quick because I thought it went right along with what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Because, I mean, even the way that we're presenting them, these were taken for an AIA design submission. And, with the whole presentation, the photographs that we took fit perfectly. Exactly what you're saying. But they, if they're in context of the, using them as marketing, they're good. They're not great. And how do we make them great? And how do we have the conversation about improving them? And so that, goes into Hunter's, topic here. How do we critique? What's the right way to critique? What's the wrong way to critique? Do you, should you be too hard on them?
Well, there's also downfalls to not having your work critiqued, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is a big topic. I don't know if we're going to get to it all tonight, but
I mean, we may break this up into 2 episodes because it is something that I think all of us are passionate about, and all of the listeners can probably definitely contribute to. But so let's jump into something for specifically for students and specifically for Hunter, because his voicemail, when he was talking about it, he was talking about as part of their in their studio, they're supposed to critique other students' work. And 9 times out of 10, here's what normally happens. And we've got actually a friend, Marcus Scarrow, from Australia, that we talk to him all the time. I talk to him on Facebook and everything else, and so he's in school, and he always goes off on the way that the critique happens in school, because what happens is that everybody goes around the room and says, "Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. That's perfect. Love it. It's fantastic." There's nothing constructive about the criticism that actually tells them to get better. So you're saying that a second-year student, that their work is just perfect and that there's no room for
no child
improvement?
left
Thanks.
behind.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. Moving on. I don't have to do anything. So don't, there's the fine line of giving a good critique and just being an asshole. Yeah. And I think that might be where
critique is not voting.
Exactly.
It is not voting at all. This is something where, to me, it should be about making the project better. And so even if it's a final review, it's like, I can't believe how many times I heard this, right? But in class, whenever we gave final reviews, most often I would hear, "That was a good first pass."
Oh.
Always, though. It's just because when you're in school and you're in the quarter system or the semester system, it is a really short amount of time, right? And it really is, because in the professional world, when you are working through design problem, a first pass you're going to go through iterations really fast, and the amount of work that happens in a school quarter really isn't that much effort in the professional setting. So I think that's where they're coming from. But I'll always remember that it was a good first pass, and you're like, "Oh, I just worked on this. This is my 4th one, and I've been working on this for 10 weeks straight, and I haven't been sleeping and whatever." And it's like, yeah, but really, it's not that much work. So.
Well, and let's put it in professional context here. When we're doing a feasibility study for a new school or something, we'll sit down with a design committee that's made up of the school, the principal, the teachers, the PTA, some state representatives from the the public school system, the actual project manager from capital construction, and then, the design team. And so everybody there will have an opinion about, the direction of the school and what it needs and everything else. And so we break this up into several meetings. And at the beginning of each meeting, we'll present the work that we've done, or we'll present an idea of what we would like to do, get feedback from everybody. We'll go around the room and everybody will have an opinion or a critique on exactly what it is that they want to see. And you've got basically 2 weeks to take, a room maybe up to 20 people and take every one of those ideas and try to come up with multiple solutions on the problems or ideas that they brought up. You want to let them know
the next time you see them that you heard them, right? And so some of those things maybe don't apply. And I mean, that's really kind of the nut of critique, is you're still the decider, right? You're going to hear all the time when you're listening to critique the words "I like" or "you should," and really those are opinions, and I think that we can probably just talk about the words "I like" for a few minutes here. But your role is to be the problem solver, the interpreter, and you're going to decide if what they're saying has any value to your project, because you're the one getting paid, especially in the professional setting, to be the expert here. And I think a lot of times, like what Cormac's talking about in the public venue, you are getting some very, they're untrained, right? There's people who don't have experience doing critique, so they do fall back onto opinion and what they like. And it's our job to actually start asking the right questions at that point. Okay, so you can just listen and you can say, okay. And there's a great article on the Mule Design website, which we'll put a link to in the show notes, that just talks about the power of saying okay, just listening and acknowledging, but then because you don't have to do anything with what anybody says, right? And that's really the power of the designer and of being the expert. But you also then get to ask your own questions, like can you elaborate on that? Why do you think that? Because really your goal is to get to the bottom of how can this make the design better or change it? Not your job isn't just to be the people pleaser yes man for every single person in the room.
Exactly. That's the big key is, the point and purpose behind a critique is to make the architecture better. I mean, that is and really that's the end all be all. You've got user groups, you've got student groups, you've got all of these different things, in the case of Hunter, he's sitting around a room with other people, with other students trying to learn just what it is that he's getting into. And it's always it's the key to a critique, a good critique, is how are you going to enrich, what you're talking about? How is, not only just the conversation of, rather than you're sitting around, oh, that's fine, that's pretty, that's cute. You're trying to bring something to the table to make their work better, or at least, as Evan said, say, listen and say, okay. You don't always have to offer up an opinion.
No.
But but you have to listen.
Yeah, and I would also add that sorry, Neil. I would just like to add that a lot of people have good ideas. And I kind of went through this. We have a competition at work every year where people submit a proposal for a travel scholarship, and everybody would keep their travel scholarship ideas a secret because no one wanted somebody else to steal their idea, which was never going to happen, okay? No one was ever going to steal. Just like in studio, everybody's doing the same project in that case, right? But no two projects ever look the same, right? And the whole power of critique is that you could have good ideas and somebody else can come along and help make it a great idea. And that's what I told everybody who was entering this competition we have at the office. And it happened. And it was so wonderful to see it happen. And it did remind us, I think, of studio. And it worked really well because people said, well, have you thought of it this way? Or someone would come and say, I have two ideas. Help me choose. And it was obvious, right, to the people sitting around listening, you have to use this idea. It's way better. And here's what you can do to make it even better than that. And then that person ended up winning the competition. And it wasn't like the people sitting around were pissed off that they helped that other person win. No, I mean, everybody owns a piece of that success then at that point. And that's where the power of critique is something that can be extremely positive, and that's why we should always do it in these creative processes.
I was going to ask the question from you guys about a good critique from a student view, or even in a professional setting, and possibly even from your client, or not necessarily from your or to your client, but from your client. Is it, instead of like, I like, because you mentioned that I like this or I think this, what about, I mean,
I hate purple.
Well, I hate green. That's the mule design reference. But and if you read that article, you'll know what that is. But instead of saying the I like, maybe start off with asking a question. Have you thought about this, or do you think such and such might make this a better thing, or and give a chance for the person being critiqued to necessarily respond and say, either I've thought about that and I tried that, I explored that, it didn't work, or that's a great idea. That kind of gets to your point, Evan, about making it a better project, better architecture. By asking that question, the person's either going to respond, yeah, I explored that, or no, I didn't, and that may be something worth exploring. That's a critique without really saying that's a crappy design, right?
You should be trying to get the root idea out of the person who is giving the presentation, right? So you can ask questions that are open-ended. I think you're right, Neil. You shouldn't be asking yes or no questions. You shouldn't be telling them your opinions. You should be asking questions that draw the story or the idea out of them, because then you can say,
exactly,
is that based on the idea? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you might want to consider going this route instead, right? Because it seems to me like any time that the idea is based on the project is based on the idea, it's always going to be stronger. So if you can help somebody navigate that, because we all have been through this. We all know that getting another set of eyeballs offers clarity, right? You get lost in the project. You get blinders on. You stop seeing it from 30,000 feet. You're only looking at it right there. And so a lot of times it can help just to say, hey, can you come over here? It could just be one other person. It doesn't have to be a group. It doesn't have to be out in the open. It could be at your desk, just, desk crit style, and say, can you come over here? What do you think about this? And then they start to look at it and say, well, how did you do that? Why did you do that? How does it reinforce this other thing that you just talked about? And so it starts to offer clarity, because the ambiguity is really, I think, what muddies down these projects, and it starts to lead to a crit that turns into a bashing, right?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of times, a lot of people don't really understand the purpose behind a crit, and so they go into the public bashing.
And what I would have done is
exactly, and actually, one of the things that Hunter had asked in his voicemail was, what is a good way of having a critique? And one of them is, and we've touched on it quite a bit, is rather than starting confrontational, rather than saying, I may have done it this way. Nobody really cares how you would have done it, because it's not your project. What you should, a good way to start, let me not, say exact, a good way to start is to kind of draw out that story. I mean, we were just talking about this, ask them, well, what did you mean when you did this? Or, okay, so I see that you did this, this, and this. Why? I'm just curious why you did that, you don't have to offer up an opinion. It's just like, well, I would have done it this way.
Or how did you get to that point, right? Because sometimes people jump to the end and you just see the rendering, right? But what was the process you went through to get to this point?
Exactly.
So we can see then if you stayed on track or if you got off track, or maybe getting off track was the best thing that could have happened, and here's why: because it opened up this other door. So these leading questions that are open-ended, I think, are great ways to have a really positive critique.
So let me ask you, Cormac, if let's say somebody does start off with the I like or I dislike or whatever, and you're heading into it, but we've all been there, or maybe Hunter's experienced this, in his critiques, as somebody's, immediately goes to the bashing. How do you best respond to that? Or do we go back to, the I like green, just say, okay.
Don't you just start crying?
No.
Rather than
don't cry. Don't cry.
Here's the thing, and it takes
not that important, guys and ladies.
Life or death.
Well, and it's funny that you say, start crying, because a lot of times this is the first time in a kid's life, especially, when you're in college. This is, your first time you're away from home. You spent your entire life with your mom and your dad saying, oh, that's great. Oh, this is good. With no, other than, whatever typical upbringing, kind of critique that you have. I mean, you just have like family critique. So this is the first time that you're actually going to have, critiques that are judging your work and stuff like that are really, kind of going to get very almost emotional to you. And a lot of times
you are being extremely vulnerable at this point.
Exactly.
And you're probably emotionally and physically exhausted, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's the perfect storm. And that's why critique is such good training in school.
Yes.
Because it does develop that thick skin.
So this is the first time that you're going to continue to develop this skill. And some people don't develop this skill even through their professional time. Because, I've met plenty of professionals. And early on in my career, I probably might have been one of them that really didn't take critique very well, and so I probably get pissy at them and say,
"You mean
oh,
like
yeah?
you took it
well,
personal?"
Yes,
exactly. I think that's a typical thing. Yeah.
So one of the things is just like, well, if they start kind of in on you and it gets to be that kind of nagging critique and they're kind of just driving at you and stuff like that. You just kind of have this little step back. It's just like, well, guys, look, I did, look at a lot of these different views and I appreciate all of these comments, but what I'd really like to focus in on is this, and so kind of you
can guide it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You help drive the boat on exactly what you want to get out of your critique.
It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with doing the research into finding who you want to work for.
Exactly.
You get to steer the critique as well. I mean, you're the person up there doing the presentation. You are leading these people through the process that you've been through. And so if you're not getting out of it what you need to get out of the critique, you have control. Hopefully you have the guts to just say, you know what? We're at the point now where this isn't helping me. Is there anything that you can offer me to help make this better? And I think that is one of the statements that you can make that actually garners some respect.
Now that's an easier said than done task.
Sure, totally.
Because
that's why I said hopefully you can get the guts to.
Right. Because one, it takes it does take a lot of guts to actually stand up for yourself, especially when you're feeling very vulnerable and you've just been beaten down for like say 20 minutes or something on I would have done it this way or that way or whatever, and as you said, you probably work through the night, you're tired, you're hungry, you probably haven't showered, and you're sitting here and you're presenting this and you're just absolutely physically exhausted, and you're mentally at a breaking point anyway, and here you are being put on the defensive of your work.
Well, you have to defend it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So then it's really that try to pull that focus in, kind of take that deep breath, push down whatever, bit of mental breakdown that you're about to have, and really just kind of refocus it on, what you want to get out of it. Exactly what Evan said.
Well, I would say, have the guts to do this. If you're in a school setting, you're paying to be there.
Exactly.
You have all of the control. Nobody's going to fire you. Nobody's going to, send you to your desk for standing up for that or saying, like what Evan said, this is not helpful. What's next? Or
Well,
do you have something else that you can add to help me make this better instead of just ripping me apart? Because that's, that the only person that's doing any good to is the person doing the ripping.
Yeah,
Because they're just standing up
they
and beating
feel
on
so
their
much
chest,
more,
right?
More important than you. at that
Absolutely.
point.
So it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? You're in school. Do it. I mean, this is your time to do this, because, when you're in a professional setting or you're in front of the school board or the planning commission or something like that, you can't do that, right?
You need to have the experience in place when you get to that point.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
you do that during school, right?
Right.
Because I'll tell you, there are presentations and critiques that go so well, you will collect business cards at the end and you will get a job out of it.
Right.
That's right.
It is your chance to shine.
And I can tell you, this has actually happened to me. I was doing a presentation in front of about, I don't know, it was 80 people or something. That essentially, there's a little sidebar. We were doing a number of projects for residential development, and there was like 4 or 5 different developers. This was for a huge project. So there was several developers. They each had their own architects, and I was one of the ones that was representing this one builder, and I had prepared well. I did a great job, and I basically, it was a great presentation. It went really well. And afterwards, I literally was approached by another architectural firm, gave me their card, saw me do that presentation, saw me do another one in front of a planning commission when we were both there with competing projects in front of the planning. They gave me my card. I got a call from them. They did end up offering me a job.
Yeah.
I didn't take it at the time, but I mean, that can happen to you. So this is your time to practice. If you're in school like Hunter is now, this is your time to practice those skills. And that's the way to really look at this. This is not only you practicing your architecture skills, you're learning, you're designing, you're presenting your projects, but this is your chance to learn how to take criticism, how to handle that, and then how to respond. So view it in that way. Try not to look at your crit as this personal attack on your design abilities. No, take it as the opportunity to learn. Everything you do in school is a learning process to help you build the skills that you will eventually use in the profession. And that's the way you should try and view it, I think. It's certainly not the way I viewed it when I was in school. But I should have.
Me either.
Right?
No,
I should have. Now looking back, I can say that.
That's why we're doing this.
That's why we're doing this. That's why you're listening, hopefully. And
I think we want to take it beyond school too, because especially this isn't too difficult to pull off in an office, right? There are other architects and creative people working in the firm, and there's people of all different places within the where they are in their career. But what if you're a sole proprietor? Okay, so I don't know anyone here who's a sole proprietor, but if there were one out of the 3 of us, maybe they could speak up. How does critique work in your world, Neil? And because I think we're in a time where it's actually easier than ever.
Yeah. There's critique from your clients, and then there's also what's make this difficult. And I think we've talked a long time ago, probably, about this on the podcast, but in a very early episode. But I use a lot of social media. I mean, over time, I've built up a lot of people that I would consider friends, and as if I had gone to school or used to work with them, sort of thing. But people I've never met. And yet, I've posted, pictures of designs or images of designs that I'm working on, and basically just threw it out there. It's like, what do people think? And it's a little bit harder then, because in 140 characters you can only say so much, and it's hard to really explain what the thinking is behind things. But it can be a way to engage, because as a sole proprietor, I don't have that person working next to me that I can go, hey, what do you think of this idea?
I posted some details that I had sketched onto Instagram.
Yeah.
And
those were awesome, by the way.
It's a great place to get feedback, right? So one of my friends on there says, great example of a thermal bridge detail. right? and I had never even considered that when I drew it, right? And
Right.
so this was a critique of the guy being a total jerk. But no, he pointed out a very important thing that I had not considered. And that probably wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have posted it there. And so I think it is an example of critique can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to happen in person. It can happen online. It could happen over Skype. It could be, a go-to meeting. It could be a Google Hangout. There's so many ways to facilitate the critique nowadays that people who are off practicing by themselves, like I said, critique is so important because it makes the project better. You get another set of eyes on the project. You're going to get somebody else's experience and, just their background. They're going to see something that you have not seen. And again, I think, this is a whole other topic, but the diversity of the people you invite to your critique is very important.
Yes.
Because you are going to get such a wide range of experience then. And that's only going to help you. And so, Neil, I know you've done this. I know, Cormac, you post stuff on there too. And we have a bunch of friends who post a bunch of cool stuff and everybody kind of just, it's an open platform and we all want to help each other out. And so it's a great way to share. And I think it is very powerful for people who feel like they don't have a team of people there to back them up, but this is a way to accomplish that.
And you're right. I think that, as a sole practitioner, me not being that one, but, there are tools out there for sole practitioners. We belong to a Google group, that is a collection of small firms, and sole practitioners. And the very existence of that group is to, basically have the conversation to enrich each other's work, their practice, and everything else. And that's kind of the point behind it all. I mean, you've said it, I've said it, Neil said it. I mean, the whole point of a critique is to improve the architecture. So when you posted the, those details, I mean, I remember they were, wonderful sketches and stuff. And, it was at a time when we were talking about, hand drawing and stuff like that, architecture. But this one guy points out, about thermal bridging and stuff. And you're like, oh, yeah. And, so do you go back and you start looking at, better ways of thermal bridging and stuff like that? Probably, to make it better.
Right.
But that's kind of the point is, like in a bigger firm, everybody is working towards the firm succeeding, so not necessarily the small firm or the sole practitioner has that avenue to kind of help, lean on somebody. So these groups and stuff like that, the Google Hangouts and everything else that Evan just mentioned, are these avenues of having that dialogue and that conversation. I mean, I remember when I was practicing on my own and did a project, and it was received very well, both by the client and, the architectural community. I mean, I got, recognized and things like that. But when the economy started to turn, and I needed to go work for somebody else, I showed that project as an example, and the guy who was interviewing me was like, well, did you consider this or that on this particular project? I'm looking at it and I'm like, I kind of wish you were here 2 years ago when I was sitting down there, because that would have made this project so much better if I would have done that or that.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't bashing it. He was just offering up, a critique on what he saw of what could have made this that much better, kind of thing.
Right.
And I wasn't offended, by by him approaching me just for all of this. I liked the fact that he was open for dialogue, in that I felt like this was a comfortable place to work, because that's what we would be doing, is we would be talking about architecture, and that's what you want out of a firm is, to have the conversations that, we have on the, podcast all the time, is how are we making, the story better? How are we making the architecture better? So look for those. I mean, the avenues are out there.
Well, I think that's a good way. I mean, we should really turn this back out to our listeners at this point and say, if they've got any recommendations of either methods or things they like to, do as far as making or taking critiques, and let's get some feedback from our listeners, either through the voicemail, which is, and I'll throw that number out since we haven't talked about it yet, and we've been getting more calls, so we really appreciate that. So that number, give us a call at 415-484-8496, and if you've got some great advice, we can include it in a future show. Or leave some comments on the website at archispeakpodcast.com.
Yep, each episode has a whole comment section, and you could do it on Facebook as well, or you can talk to us on Twitter. And I know we have at least a couple professors out there in architecture who probably could weigh in on critiques that they've run in their classes.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Probably give some pretty good advice. So hopefully those people are listening and they can chime in as well.
And Hunter, I'll do a personal shout out to Professor Robert Brooks and have him, give you some personal critiques. Since he's right down the hall from you.
Excellent. Hey, one last thing here before we wrap up and say goodnight. Just another last follow-up. We currently have, as I look at our iTunes ratings, 49. And our friend over at the Entrepreneur Architect podcast has 53. So we're still behind. We need some more reviews, people.
And I know that Mark's goal is to get to 100 reviews by the end of the year. And so if anybody who hasn't listened to the Entrepreneur Architect podcast should definitely get over there. Mark's podcast is a huge resource for anybody running a firm in architecture or thinking about it. Even if you're not running your own firm, I'd highly recommend listening to his podcast and leave him a review. He really wants to hit that goal, and I think we can help him make that happen. And if you want to leave a review for us, we would appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Well, with that, please give us a call or leave some comments on the website or on Facebook, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right, good night.
See you guys.